Hello and welcome, dear students. Today I'm going to introduce you to Modernism and Modernist Literature of 20th century. So, after completing this lesson, you should be able to differentiate between Victorian of 19th century and modern of 20th century. Summarize modernism and its characteristics. Identify the 20th century English writers and movements. Define the main literary trends, themes, and techniques. Well, the first questions that we have to answer is, what is modernism? Yes, what is modernism? Modernism is a trend of thinking that affirms the power of human beings to create, improve, and reshape their environment. Its time span is that of the first half of the 20th century. That means between 1910 and the mid-1960s. Modernism is a break with tradition against established religious, political, and social views. It is relative rather than absolute truth. It deals with relative rather than absolute truth. As a movement, modernism is multinational and multidisciplinary. It is a reaction to the contemporary world affairs of war and violence. In modernism, people make their own meaning in the world. It witnessed the rise of political, cultural, and artistic movements rooted in the changes of Western society. Now we have to compare between modernism of the 20th century and the Victorian age of the 19th century. Actually, modernism is a rebellion against Victorian age. It rebelled against the 19th century traditional forms of art, architecture, literature, religious faith, social organization, and daily life. And here we have two pictures that express the difference between the Victorian concept of art here and the modern concept of art as it is shown in this picture. Here we will have a chart that shows you the difference between modern and Victorian ages. Modern age rejects all forms, while Victorian age accepts all forms. Modern age is all about realism, while Victorian age is all about imaginative art. In modern age we have meaninglessness, but in modern age we have superficial. The modern age is complex, while the Victorian age is easy to understand. In modern age we have intellectuality, while in Victorian age it's all general. In modern age there is loss of faith, while in Victorian age there is blind faith. This is a Victorian lifestyle, while this is a picture that portrays the modern realism. Here we are going to introduce you to the differences in the modern world values. Actually, I'm going to give you the difference between the modern world and pre-modern world and modern early 20th century. The pre-modern world was ordered, while the modern world is chaotic. The pre-modern world is meaningful. The modern world is futile. The pre-modern world is optimistic. The modern world is pessimistic. The pre-modern world is stable, while the modern world is fluctuating. In the pre-modern world we have faith. In the modern world there is loss of faith. In the pre-modern world there is moralities and moral values, while in the modern world there is collapse of morality and values. In the pre-modern world we have a clear sense of identity, while in the modern world there is confused sense of identity. And to understand modernism very well, we have to get an idea about the historical background of 20th century. Actually, in the 20th century, there were wars and conflicts. There is the First World War and the Second World War. There are civil wars. There is mass destruction, and there are mass murders. The 20th century means the rise of new imperial powers. Here we have nationalism. Borders shape the face of the modern world, leading to passports and nationalities. And in the modern and 20th century, we have a rise of mega cities, and there is technological developments. The scientific revolution is another landmark in the 20th century with Einstein's theory of physics. The most prominent thinkers of the time are Karl Marx and Sigmund Freud. Karl Marx is well known in the field of political science. He tackled the problems with the economic order and theory of socialism. He also discussed the conflict within the class system, and he deals with the fundamentally contradictions within the capitalist system. Sigmund Freud was prominent and well-known thinker in psychology. His main ideas are that the human mind is a basic and fundamental structure. He wrote The Interpretation of Dreams in 1900, and he talked about the subjective reality. That means the experience based on the play of basic drives and instincts through which the outside world was perceived. The main art movements of the time: one is Impressionism. It talks about light and color were more important than clear, sharp images, and we do not see objects, but instead we see light itself. Symbolism. It says that language is expressly symbolic in its nature, and poetry and writing should follow connections that the sheer sound and texture of the words create. The third movement is Imagism, and it is a movement established by Ezra Pound and avant-garde poets. Their slogan was "Make it new." It emphasized on verbal economy and precise language. The fourth movement is Postmodernism. It is multicultural, and it talks about comparative views of history and tradition. It stresses the sense of fragmentation, that is, multiple conflicting identities, and hyper-reality, image saturation, simulacra seem more powerful than the real in postmodernism. Cubism, as it is shown in the picture, it is about geometric shapes which are used with this modern style of painting. Surrealism, The Surrealist works feature the element of surprise and unexpected juxtapositions. Dadaism, its purpose was to ridicule or poke fun at the supposed meaninglessness of the modern world. Now it's your turn, activity, and your activity is an attached file named activity 1. Here you have to find definitions of a number of modernist movements. Now we have to cast the light on modernist writers. And this modernist writers will cover the era between 1900 and 1940. The poets include T.S. Eliot, and he is well known for his poem The Waste Land. We have also Robert Frost, W.B. Yeats, and Ezra Pound. Short stories writers and novelists. James Joyce is well known for his novel Ulysses. Ernest Hemingway is well known for his novel The Old Man and the Sea, and Joseph Conrad with his landmark The Heart of Darkness, and Virginia Woolf To the Lighthouse. F. Scott Fitzgerald The Great Gatsby, D.H. Lawrence Sons and Lovers, and Catherine Mansfield. Modernist literature. What is modernist literature, and what does it look like? The modernist writing is predominantly cosmopolitan and often expresses a sense of urban cultural dislocation, along with an awareness of new anthropological and psychological theories. Its favored techniques of juxtaposition and multiple points of view challenge the reader to re-establish a coherence of meaning from fragmentary forms. Characteristics of modernism in literature. Literature in the modern age exhibits perspective. That means meanings comes from the individual's perspective, not from the writer's perspective. And in the modern literature, we have interiority, and it is represented in the inner psychology and stream of consciousness. Here we have perception of language change. The language is thick with multiple meaning. And we have emphasis on the experimental, that means the open-ending form. Features of modernist literature comprises a number of points that can be tackled in the following. It has marked pessimism as against Victorian optimism. It has common motive in modernist fiction. That means an alienated individual trying in vain to make sense of a predominantly urban and fragmented society. There is absence of a central heroic figure, and we have multiple narrative points of view parallax. The formal characteristics of modern literature. It has open form, it has free verse, juxtaposition, intertextuality, classical allusion, and meta-narrative. Now I'm going to give you details about the above mentioned points. Juxtaposition. What is juxtaposition? It means two unlike things which are put next to one another. It has a quality of being unexpected and it is meant to show similarities or differences. Example is Pounds in a station of the metro, the very short poem. The classical allusions, making a reference to a place, event, literary work, etc., directly or by implication, and it is left to the reader or hearer to make the connection. The free verse. What is free verse? It's poetry with no strict meter or rhyme, still recognizable as poetry by virtue of complex patterns that readers make coherent. Intertextuality. It means shaping texts' meanings by other texts, the author's borrowing and transformation of a prior text, and the reader's referencing of one text in reading another. Meta-narrative, sometimes called master or grand narrative. The prefix meta, it means beyond. It is a self-conscious story, and it's a story about story, encompassing and explaining other little stories within totalizing schemas or framework. The open form is an emphasis on experimental form. Here we move to thematic characteristics of modernist literature. One of the themes is dislocation of meaning, disillusionment, substitution of mythical past, technological changes, and product of metropolis, and breakdown of social norms. The breakdown of social norms and cultural sureties, dislocation of meaning and sense from its normal context, rejection of history and the substitution of a mythical past borrowed without chronology. It is a product of the metropolis or of cities and urban scapes. Overwhelming technological changes of the 20th century. And disillusionment means the feeling arising when something is not what it was anticipated to be, more severe and traumatic than common disappointment, especially when a belief central to one's identity is shown to be false. Now we have to move on to the modernist narrative technique. One of the prominent modernist narrative techniques is stream of consciousness. What is stream of consciousness? It is a literary technique. It portrays an individual point of view by giving the written equivalent of the character's thoughts and thought process, either in a loose internal interior monologue or in connection to his or her sensory reactions to external occurrences. It is a special form of interior monologue, and it means leaps in syntax and punctuation. And here we have expressive images that show or figure out the stream of consciousness. Now drama, the theater of the absurd, was well known in the 20th century as a figure of the 20th century drama. What is theater of the absurd? It originated in existentialism, the philosophy, which viewed man as trapped in a hostile world. Human life was meaningless, and this created a sense of confusion, despair, and emptiness. The universe was not traditional and defied any explanation. The leading figure in existentialism is Jean-Paul Sartre. He was born in 1905 and he died in 1980. Main features of the theater of the absurd. It means the absence of a real story or plot. There is no plot, and all actions are significant. It has vagueness about time and place and characters. The value of language is reduced, and actions on stage contradicts the words spoken by the characters. An extensive use of pauses, silences, and farcical situations. The best example of the theater of the absurd is the comedy or tragicomedy written by Samuel Beckett's entitled Waiting for Godot. This is a scene from Waiting for Godot, where Vladimir and Strajan meet beside the road under the tree in a lonely and deserted place. This is your assignment. You have to see the attached file. Assignment 1. So, the above lesson has introduced students to Modernism and its characteristics, the difference between Victorian and modern age, the eminent 20th century English writers and movements, and the modernist literary trends, themes, and techniques. Thank you.